Shalom, everyone, to Living with the Times. We are going to connect current events here in Israel to the Torah portion. This week we will be reading Chayei Sarah. In the beginning of the Parsha, Sarah Imenu, the matriarch Sarah, dies. And the whole first part of the Parsha is how Avram arranges for her to be buried. We're only going to focus on one part of this story. And that is, it says that Avram came to eulogize and to cry for Sarah. In the word to cry, one of the letters, the chaf, is written small. Anytime that there's a big letter or a small letter in the Torah, it means that there's a deeper understanding that we have to look at. So why is this letter chaf small? So the simple understanding that many of our commentaries have told us, it's to tell us that Avram minimized his crying. In other words, he cried. He cried. His wife, his soulmate, his partner for all those years has now passed away. And of course he cried. But the chaf is written small to tell us that even though we go through a mourning process, and of course we never forget our loved ones that have passed away, we're told that we can't give up on life. Life does go on. And so the chaf is written small to say, yes, Avram cried, but he didn't become frozen in depression. He didn't give up. He cried and he mourned and he eulogized and he buried his wife, and life continued. We learn much about our mourning practices from this story. But one of the great tzaddikim of approximately 200 years ago, the Ber Maim Chaim, gave a different understanding of why the chaf is written small. And he actually says it's to tell us the opposite, that Avram cried an increasing, a great amount of tears over the death of his wife. So why is the chaf written small? So the Ber Maim Chaim says like this: the word for a crown, one of the words for a crown is keter. Keter begins with the letter chaf, as in the word that he cried for her. So he said, there's a saying, Eshet Chayil Ateret Bala, a woman of valor is the crown of her husband. And so Sarah was Avram's soulmate, his partner in turning the world on to one God. They worked in tandem. And Avram understood that she was his crown. He understood her greatness. And now that she was gone, his crown was diminished. And that's why the chaf is small. So why am I explaining this in relationship to what is happening in Israel right now? So everyone knows what happened on Simchas Torah, and the shock and the trauma of it we will be experiencing probably for many, many years. How many years did it take to get over, which we've never gotten over, the Holocaust? And now we're 75 years beyond, and it still is reverberating very, very much. And now we have this new trauma, And we are crying. We're crying real tears, and our hearts are crying. But this can tell us something very much. On one hand, we have two explanations of the small chaf. On one hand, we can't be overwhelmed with this trauma because we're in a war now, and we need to gather our strength and our moral fortitude to be able to stand up to the forces of darkness that we are pitted against. And so we have to, in a certain sense, minimize our crying in order not to be overwhelmed by it and become confused as to what the Jewish people need to do right now. On the other hand, we need to cry rivers of tears. Because right now, not only do we have what happened in Simchas Torah, but every day now soldiers are dying trying to protect Israel. And so therefore, in the book of Lamentations, one of the verses say, Shivchi kamayim libech, nochach panei Hashem. Cry rivers of tears face to face with God. And so on one hand, we have to minimize our tears. On the other hand, we have to let them flow. There's a well-known phrase that there's nothing as whole as a broken heart. And right now we need to be whole as a people. Jews around the world have to get behind the mission at hand now is to make sure that our enemies can never, ever do this to us again, and pave the way for the whole world to stand up against those forces that would do such horrific things. And so, on one hand, we need to be totally whole, but we're going to be whole by really being broken. Broken for all those families, those communities, and for the captives, and for the families of the soldiers who are putting themselves in total danger to try to protect the Jewish people and just basic human decency in this world. So it says in the Zohar, it says, Bechia tekia beliba besitra da, bechedba tekia beliba besitra da. Crying is on one side of my heart, and joy is on the other side of my heart. And Reb Shlomo taught us all the time that these two actions need to go simultaneously together. And he would say, when I look at the world and I see what a broken place it is, how many wars, how much hatred, how much darkness, how can my heart not be crying? But at the same time, when I look at the world and I see such beautiful things, beautiful people, beautiful ideas, the beauty of nature, how can I not be joyous? So right now, it's clear that our hearts need to be crying. But we can't lose a hold of the other side of the heart that sees that redemption will come, that the decency of human beings will win out, that light will overcome the darkness, and we will, at the right time, and we pray that it's soon, we will see a full redemption that will be not only for the Jewish people, but will be for the whole world.